Throughout history, countless different cultures have risen and fallen, and as the written word was only developed relatively recently, they've been completely forgotten about. Archaeologists and historians do, though, have a way of piecing together information about long-lost civilizations by studying the ruins of their ancient buildings. From vast cities to huge carvings, places of worship, and fallen monuments, it's time to travel the globe to explore the top 15 most mysterious structures built by unknown cultures. Let's start with number 15, Nan Madol in the Federated States of Micronesia. Nan Madol is an ancient archaeological site that's in the Federated States of Micronesia on the eastern shore of the island of Pohnpei. It's often called the Venice of the Pacific, and it's one of the least understood ancient structures in the world, with a unique system of man-made islands and canals that make it one of the few ancient cities to have been built on water. What we do know after extensive research is, at the site, it was the capital of the previously unknown Sodelur dynasty, which ruled the island of Pohnpei from around 1100 to 1628. The city was the religious and political center of the dynasty, and work began building it is believed to have begun in the early part of that period. Now, the site's made up of around 100 artificial islands spread over half square mile, or about 1.5 square kilometers, and they're made from massive basalt stones and coral fill, and they're interconnected by a network of tidal canals. The largest stones used for this weigh up to 50 tons, yet no one knows exactly how they were transported to the site. They're laid in a log cabin-like structure with long rectangular slabs laid horizontally to form walls. How the ancient people of Pohnpei managed to move these massive stones across the rough terrain and open water remains one of the biggest mysteries of Nan Madol, with local legends saying it was done with magic. The city's layout, though, does suggest a highly planned settlement, with areas designated for religious rituals, political meetings, and even burial sites. For some reason, though, despite being an advanced place, Nan Madol was abandoned by the 17th century, possibly due to the rise of the Isokelekele rebellion, which overthrew the Sodelur dynasty. Now, today it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and while much of its history remains a mystery, research continues to try and uncover its lost secrets. Number 14, the Pumapunku in Peru. The Pumapunku are a collection of ancient geoglyphs located in the Palpa Valley of southern Peru, near the more famous Nazca Lines. Now, while the Nazca Lines are known around the world and have been extensively studied, the Pumapunku are equally as interesting, offering a glimpse into the pre-Columbian cultures that lived in that region, but they're far less known. The glyphs, like the Nazca ones, are etched into the desert plains and hills, and their origin, purpose, and creators are subject of ongoing research. Now, these glyphs are usually said to have been created by the Paracas and Nazca cultures, which flourished in the area between 200 BCE and 600 CE. Now, unlike the Nazca Lines, which are mainly found on the flat desert plains, the Pumapunku are located on the slopes of hills and are visible from a distance, suggesting they may have been created with the intent of being viewed from the ground as well as from above. Among the most important of them is a set of human-like figures that appear to be involved in some kind of ceremonial or religious activity, with some of them holding staffs or other objects, which have led researchers to suggest that the glyphs may have been connected to spiritual or even astronomical observations. One of the more famous figures, known as the Starman, is a humanoid figure with outstretched arms, possibly representing a deity or cosmic figure. Some researchers believe that the Pumapunku may predate the Nazca Lines by several centuries, meaning that the Paracas people, who were later absorbed by the Nazca culture, might have been the original creators of these desert drawings, something that's opened up new avenues of research into the cultural continuity between the Paracas and Nazca civilizations. Number 13, Gigantija, Malta. Gigantija is a fascinating prehistoric site that's on the island of Gozo in the Maltese archipelago. The Gigantija temples are considered some of the oldest freestanding structures of all, dating back between 3600 and 3200 BCE during the Neolithic period. The name comes from the Maltese word for giant, showing the local belief that these immense megalithic structures were built by a race of giants due to their colossal size and the enormity of the stones used. The complex is made up of two temples, which are part of the wider group of megalithic temples found across Malta and Gozo. Now, these temples are UNESCO World Heritage Sites and are regarded as masterpieces of the prehistoric architecture. Each temple is constructed from massive limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, carefully positioned without the use of metal tools or the wheel, which had not yet been introduced to the region. The precision and skill required to move and place these stones does demonstrate the advanced engineering capability of the people who built them. The temples are arranged in a cloverleaf shape with a series of semicircular apses connected by a central corridor. Now, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of animal sacrifices and offerings, including bones and pottery, suggesting the site played a significant role in the spiritual and religious lives of the prehistoric Maltese people. The culture that built Gigantija remains somewhat mysterious, though, but it is believed that they were a deeply spiritual society that worshipped fertility, nature, and the cycles of life and death. Today, it's one of Malta's most popular archaeological attractions, with the sheer scale and craftsmanship of the ancient temple showing just how advanced Malta's Neolithic inhabitants were. Number 12. Chaco Canyon, United States. Chaco Canyon, located in northwestern New Mexico, is one of the most important sites in the United States. It was the center of a thriving ancient civilization that we now know as the ancestral Puebloans, who lived in the region between 900 and 1150 CE. Across the canyon is a wide array of massive stone buildings known as great houses. These structures, which include sites such as the Pueblo Bonito, Chetroquetl, and Una Vida, are known for their size, complexity, and precise alignment with astronomical phenomena. Pueblo Bonito, the largest of the great houses, is a multi-story building with over 600 rooms and 40 kivas, or circular ceremonial spaces, making it one of the most significant structures in pre-Columbian North America. Many of the buildings here and features in the canyon were designed to align with solar, lunar, and compass directions. For example, the Sun Dagger is a rock formation that marks the solstices and equinoxes through the interaction of the light and shadow. These alignments suggest that the people here had a deep understanding of astronomy, and they may have used the canyon as an observatory and a ceremonial center. Archaeologists have found artifacts such as seashells from the Pacific coast, copper bells from Mexico, and turquoise, which were highly valued and traded throughout the Southwest. These findings suggest that Chaco was a focal point for the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices, which connected the ancestral Puebloans to other distant civilizations. But the eventual decline of this canyon around 1150 CE does remain a mystery. However, environmental factors such as drought, scarcity of resources, or the overuse of agricultural land may have played a role in this. This location is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's part of the Chaco Culture National Historical Park. But its mystery and significance still offers valuable insights into the sophisticated societies that once flourished in the American Southwest. Researchers here continue to study the region, uncovering new clues about their achievements in architecture, astronomy, and their cultural development. Number 11. The Kenish Stones, Scotland. The Kenish Stones are a prehistoric site on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. It's an ancient stone circle, sometimes referred to as the Stonehenge of Scotland, that dates back to around 3000 BCE during the Neolithic period. This site is one of the most significant and best preserved megalithic monuments in Britain, with an impressive arrangement of standing stones that have been shrouded in mystery for centuries. The Kenish stones are made up of a central stone circle made up of 13 large stones with a massive monolith standing at the center. This central circle is surrounded by rows of stones that radiate outward in a cross-like formation, and to the north a long avenue of stones extends, while smaller rows continue to the east, west, and south, giving the site a distinctive cross-shaped layout. Now, in total, there are over 50 stones here at the site, the tallest of which reaches more than 15 feet or 4.7 meters in height, and all of them are made from local gneiss, an ancient rock that adds to the mysterious feeling of the site because of its weathered and rugged appearance. Now, the exact purpose of the Kenish stones are still debated among archaeologists, but it's widely believed that the site had a ceremonial or religious function. The stones are thought to have been aligned with the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars, suggesting that the site may have been used as a prehistoric observatory of sorts. One of the leading theories is that the stones were used to mark the lunar cycle, particularly an event known as the lunar standstill, which happens every 18.6 years when the moon appears at its southernmost point on the horizon. During this event, the moon aligns with the central stone circle, leading many to believe that the site was designed with an astronomical precision. But what we know for sure, though, through excavations here, is that the area was once an important center of Neolithic activity, with evidence of nearby settlements and burial cairns. By the late Bronze Age, the site had fallen out of use and was gradually buried under peat, only to be rediscovered in the 19th century when the stones were uncovered once more. Number 10. Teotihuacan in Mexico. Teotihuacan, located about 31 miles or 50 kilometers to the northeast of modern-day Mexico City, is one of the most important archaeological sites in Mexico and one of the largest cities of the ancient world. It was established around 100 BCE and flourishing between 200 and 600 CE. Teotihuacan was home to one of the most sophisticated and powerful civilizations in Mesoamerica. The site is famous for its massive pyramids, particularly the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. The Pyramid of the Sun, the largest structure in the city and the third largest pyramid in the world, is over 213 feet or 65 meters tall. It's believed to have been a focal point of religious activity, possibly dedicated to solar deities or other celestial elements. And the Pyramid of the Moon, located at the northern end of the city, is slightly smaller, but seemingly just as holy to the people that built it. Teotihuacan has a range of other structures here, including the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, which is a smaller but intricately decorated pyramid with elaborate carvings of serpents and other deities. This temple's construction suggests that it played a critical role in both religious ceremonies and political power, as it was surrounded by elite residential compounds and chambers for the city's rulers. The city's urban planning also points to an advanced society. It was laid out like a grid pattern, covering around 7.5 square miles or just under 20 square kilometers, and home to an estimated population of 100,000 to 200,000 people at its peak. Evidence has shown it to be a major trade hub too, and its economic reach spread across much of Mesoamerica, from the Maya lands in the south to civilizations in the north. Artifacts found at the site, such as obsidian tools, ceramics, and luxury goods, reveal extensive trade networks. Having become such an influential place, Teotihuacan mysteriously declined around 600 to 700 CE. The reasons for the city's collapse are unknown, but by the time the Aztecs arrived in the region centuries later, it had long been abandoned. The Aztecs themselves would go on to see it as one of the most sacred places in the world, believing it to be the birthplace of the gods. Number 9. The Kyasa Temple in India. The Kyasa Temple, located in the Ellora Caves of Maharashtra, India, was carved entirely from a single rock. Built in the 8th century during the reign of the King Krishna I, it was dedicated to Lord Shiva, and it's part of a larger UNESCO World Heritage Site that includes 34 rock-cut temples and monasteries. Now, what's truly unusual about the Kyasa Temple, though, is that unlike most buildings which are constructed from the ground up, the Kyasa Temple was carved from the top down. Ancient engineers from a community that's long been forgotten began at the top of the mountain and painstakingly removed over 200,000 tons of rock to reveal this intricately detailed temple. The result, this temple complex, is massive, measuring approximately 108 feet or 33 meters high, 148 feet or 45 meters long, and 98 feet or 30 meters wide. The main shrine is surrounded by a number of smaller shrines and courtyards, all carved from the same rock, and the main spire, or shikhara, rises above the temple that mimics the traditional architecture of freestanding temples found elsewhere in India. Now, one of the most important sculptures here is a massive relief of Ravana shaking Mount Kailash, the mythical home of Lord Shiva, which is a theme that gives the temple its name. Despite being dedicated to Shiva, the Kyasa Temple reflects the broader religious and cultural influences of its time. In addition to the Shivaite iconography, the temple features sculptures of Vishnu, Lakshmi, and other Hindu gods, as well as representations of various celestial beings and animals. The sheer scale here and complexity of the Kyasa Temple have led to many theories about how it was constructed. Now, while it is generally believed that the temple took about 2 decades to complete, some legends suggest divine intervention or extraordinary manpower, with thousands of workers laboring day and night. No matter how it was achieved, though, the result is undoubtedly one of the most spectacular examples of architectural brilliance that you'll find anywhere on Earth. Number 8. Pumapunku in Bolivia. Pumapunku, located near Tiwanaku in western Bolivia, is believed to have been built around 15 to 1600 years ago, and it was an important site for the little-known Tiwanaku culture, which flourished in the Andes from approximately 300 to 1000 CE. Pumapunku, meaning the door of the puma in the Aymara language, is famed for its massive stone structures and elaborate stonework. Now, what makes it even more difficult to fully reveal its secrets is that over the centuries, many of the stones here at the site have been displaced, and there's been significant damage from earthquakes and looting, making it impossible for archaeologists to reconstruct its original layout. Some of the largest blocks here weigh over 100 tons, and their smooth surfaces, sharp angles, and precision-cut interlocking designs are unlike anything else found in pre-Columbian America. The precision with which these stones were cut and fitted together is incredible, and in some cases the stones fit so perfectly that not even a sheet of paper can fit between them. These H-shaped blocks, for example, which are particularly famous at Pumapunku, were carved with this level of accuracy and appear to have been designed to interlock with one another, suggesting an understanding of modular construction. The geometric consistency of these blocks does indicate that the builders had a deep knowledge of both engineering and geometry. From recent discoveries at the sites like Pumapunku, the Tiwanaku culture is now considered to have been one of the most influential pre-Inca civilizations in the Andes, and its influence spread across much of the region, including parts of present-day Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. The area was likely a significant part of a wider complex around it, which would contribute to its religious or ceremonial life, but with a lack of written records from the Tiwanaku people, we'll really never know for certain. Moving on to number 7, Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe, which is in the southeastern part of modern-day Zimbabwe, is one of Africa's most important sites. It was built between the 11th and 15th century, and it was the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. As a center of trade, culture, and political power in the region, this site is famous for its massive stone structures, which are some of the largest and oldest in sub-Saharan Africa. At its height, Great Zimbabwe may have been home to up to 20,000 people, which would have made it one of the largest urban centers of its time in southern Africa. What really stands out about the site is its impressive stone architecture, particularly the Great Enclosure, which is a massive circular wall that stands up to 36 feet or 11 meters tall and extends for over 820 feet or 250 meters. The Great Enclosure is thought to have been a royal or elite residence, possibly for the king or ruling class of the kingdom, and inside the enclosure are a series of smaller walls, passageways, and a conical tower. The exact purpose of the tower is still debated, but it may have served as a symbolic or religious structure, possibly related to the spiritual beliefs of the Shona people, who are thought to have built Great Zimbabwe, although we don't know for certain that they did. It was a major center for trade and commerce, which helped with its prosperity and growth. Archaeological excavations here have uncovered evidence of long-distance trade, including artifacts such as Chinese porcelain, Persian glass beads, and even Arab coins. These findings suggest that Great Zimbabwe was connected to a vast trade network that spanned the Indian Ocean, linking Africa to Asia and the Middle East. The decline of Great Zimbabwe in the 15th century, though, is still a mystery, with some theories suggesting that environmental factors such as overgrazing or deforestation may have led to the city's abandonment. At first, European colonizers tried to attribute the construction of Great Zimbabwe to foreign civilizations, but it's now certain that it was the work of indigenous African people, perhaps for the ancestors of the Shona. Again, with no written records from the time, we may never know for certain who actually built it, though. But it remains a reminder of Africa's rich and complex history, and it's a great source of pride for Zimbabweans today. Number 6, the Nabta Playa in Egypt. Nabta Playa is an archaeological site located in the Nubian desert of southern Egypt, about 62 miles or 100 kilometers to the west of Abu Simbel. This remote area, which is now a barren desert, was once a fertile region with seasonal lakes where ancient people thrived around 10,000 to 8,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. Nabta Playa holds a significant archaeological importance too, not only as one of the earliest known settlements in the region, but also for its sophisticated astronomical structures. At the core is a stone circle that's believed to have served as an ancient calendar or astronomical observatory. The arrangement of the stones here at the site suggests that people who lived there were able to track the celestial events, particularly the summer solstice, which marked the onset of the rainy season. The stone circle is made up of several large stones standing upright, positioned in a way that corresponds to the movements of the stars and the sun. The site also contains larger megaliths, some weighing several tons, that would have taken an enormous amount of effort to put in place at the time. Nabta Playa was also a major center for pastoral and agricultural activities. Archaeological evidence has shown that the region was home to cattle herding communities, which played a crucial role in the economy here. Remains of cattle burials found at the site suggest that cows were revered, possibly even worshipped, and may have had a symbolic or ritual importance. Scholars believe that the people here were among the first to domesticate animals, particularly cattle, in the Nile Valley region, and that their cultural and technological developments may have influenced the rise of early Egyptian society. Although Nabta Playa is now an inhospitable place, its ancient past does reveal a vibrant and dynamic culture that thrived in a lush environment long ago. The discoveries here at the site have reshaped our understanding of prehistoric Egypt and the wider Saharan region, showing the early development of social organization, religious practices, and astronomical knowledge in North Africa. While we know very little about the people who created the site, we can certainly see the influence on culture in the region for thousands of years after they were gone. Number 5. The Longyu Caves in China. The Longyu Caves, located in Zhejiang Province in China, were discovered by chance in 1992 by local villagers. To this day, they remain a complete mystery as there are no historical records that explain who built them. Their origins date back over 2,000 years, most likely to the time of the Qin or early Han dynasties, although no definitive evidence has been able to confirm that. There are currently 24 known caves at the site, covering a total area of over 300,000 square feet or about 30,000 square meters. Each cave is geometrically aligned and cut with amazing precision, featuring flat walls, sharp corners, and ceilings with uniform chisel marks that run in parallel lines. One of the most surprising things about the cave here is their structural integrity. Despite being carved from relatively soft sandstone, they've remained intact for over 2 millennia, with no signs of collapse, erosion, or even significant damage. It suggests that the people responsible for them must have developed these skills in other yet-to-be-discovered sites. The purpose of the caves, too, remains a complete mystery. Unlike other structures in China, which are often associated with religious, military, or burial functions, the Longyu Caves don't contain any artifacts, statues, or paintings that would suggest their intended use. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the sheer size and number of caves here would have required a massive amount of manpower and resources to complete, making it even stranger that there are no historical records that detail its construction. With all these questions, it's perhaps no surprise that they become a popular cultural tourist attraction in China. Now that they've been fully explored, there's really no more to learn from the site to help try to explain their existence. And it'll only be if another similar set of caves is found elsewhere that we may finally get to the bottom of why they were built and who they were built for. Number 4. The Steppe Geoglyphs in Kazakhstan. The steppe geoglyphs of Kazakhstan are spread across the Turgai steppe in northern Kazakhstan, and they're a series of massive geometric shapes, including squares, crosses, circles, and even swastikas, that were only first spotted by a Kazakh economist and an amateur archaeologist, Dmitry Day, in 2007, while he was studying satellite imagery of the region. In total, there are over 50 of these earthworks and structures that cover an area of around 278 square miles, or over 720 square kilometers. These shapes are formed from mounds of dirt, stones, or timber, and they range from simple patterns like lines or circles to more complex designs like the swastika, which was a symbol widely used in ancient Eurasian cultures for its representation of the sun and eternity long before its appropriation in modern times. Some of these geoglyphs are vast, with the largest stretching over 984 feet or 300 meters on each side. Their sheer number makes them visible from satellite images and aerial photography, but they'd remain unknown and forgotten until their recent discovery. Several theories have been put forward about their purpose, with some archaeologists believing that they may have been used as ceremonial or religious sites, perhaps related to sun worship or seasonal festivals. Others have suggested that the geoglyphs may have served as territorial markers to separate areas controlled by different tribes or groups, but as of yet, no definitive evidence has been uncovered to support any specific interpretation. Also mysterious is how they were made, as the scale of these geoglyphs would have required considerable effort, organization, and resources. And without the aid of modern technology, the people of the steppe would have relied on simple tools and communal labor to build these massive structures. Number 3. Searia, Sri Lanka. Searia, is also known as Lion Rock, is an ancient rock fortress located in the central Matale district of Sri Lanka. Rising over 650 feet or 200 meters above the surrounding plain, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the country's most iconic landmarks. The rock's history dates back to the 5th century, during the reign of King Kashyapa I. According to legend, Kashyapa, having overthrown his father and king in a violent coup, sought refuge at Searia to escape his half-brother Moggallana, the rightful heir who was determined to reclaim the throne. In response to his political situation, Kashyapa transformed Searia into a fortified citadel, both as a symbol of his power and a refuge from his enemies. It's not entirely clear how accurate this account is, though, and it's possible, too, that an entirely different civilization was actually responsible for building it, with the king simply taking control when he found it in exile. At the heart of the site is the towering Lion Rock upon which royal palaces were constructed. The summit of Sigiriya, where the palace once stood, includes remnants of royal buildings, cisterns, and terraced gardens. The site includes water gardens, terraced gardens, and boulder gardens, all designed to create a harmonious balance between nature and artistry. Sigiriya is also renowned for its frescoes, which are located along a sheltered rock face partway up the fortress. These paintings, known as the Sigiriya Maidens, show graceful women wearing elaborate jewelry and clothing, and these frescoes are thought to represent either celestial nymphs or members of the royal court. Despite their exposure to the elements, though, these paintings have survived for over 1,500 years, and their colors and details remain remarkably well preserved. But after King Kashyapa left, Sigiriya fell into disuse as a royal residence. It remained a religious center for several centuries before being completely abandoned and left to the jungle. It was rediscovered by British explorers in the 19th century, and it's now become a major archaeological site and a tourist destination. Number 2. Las Labradas in Mexico. Las Labradas is an archaeological site that can be found on the Pacific coast of Sinaloa in Mexico. It's known for its extensive collection of ancient petroglyphs, which are rock carvings etched into volcanic stones, and they've been dated between 2,500 and 1,200 years ago. The site has hundreds of them along the beach. These carvings depict a variety of symbols, including abstract geometric designs, animals, human figures, spirals, and even representations of celestial bodies such as the sun. Now, while the exact identity of the ancient artists is still debated, many archaeologists believe that they were members of indigenous groups that inhabited the region long before the arrival of Europeans. These petroglyphs may have been part of a sacred ceremonial landscape used for rituals, as the closeness of the carvings to the ocean suggests a connection to nature and perhaps water deities or fertility practices. Some researchers have suggested that these petroglyphs were tied to astronomical observations, particularly because many ancient cultures in Mesoamerica were known for their knowledge of the stars and celestial cycles. The spirals, concentric circles, and other geometric patterns found here might represent those phenomena or serve as ritual symbols for understanding the cycles of nature. Today, Las Labradas is a protected archaeological zone, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site because its rich history and mysterious origins continue to encourage research and exploration. And by continuously studying and potentially finding new carvings, we may one day reveal far more about the people behind them. Number 1. Derinkuyu, the underground city in Turkey. Derinkuyu, located in the Cappadocia region of Turkey, is one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the world. The ancient subterranean complex, believed to have been built around the 8th century BCE, extends several stories below ground and could accommodate thousands of people. For a long time, this city had been completely forgotten about, and it was only when a resident just happened to look behind a wall in a cellar of a more modern home that an entrance to Derinkuyu was discovered. It descends over 200 feet or 60 meters down into the earth and covers an area large enough to house an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food stores, and essential supplies. Each level of this city contains a variety of functional spaces, including living quarters, kitchens, communal rooms, storage areas, stables, chapels, and even schools. The depth and complexity of this city demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of engineering, ventilation, and defense, all of which were necessary for the survival of the inhabitants here. The builders created a series of ventilation shafts that allowed for fresh air to circulate throughout the underground space, ensuring that the inhabitants could live there for extended periods. These shafts, some of which are over 164 feet or 50 meters deep, also served as communication channels between the different levels of the city. But the primary purpose of Derinkuyu was likely defense, as the Cappadocia region, with its landscape of soft volcanic rock, was prone to invasions and raids throughout history. The entrances to the city could be sealed off with large rolling stone doors, some weighing up to half a ton, making it nearly impossible for invaders to breach. The doors could also only be opened from the inside, providing an added layer of security. But narrow tunnels were also designed to force invaders to proceed single file, making it easier for the city's defenders to repel any attack. There are no signs that the city was ever breached or who actually built it, but it's generally believed that it was first constructed by the Phrygians, an ancient Indo-European people, and later expanded by the Byzantine Christians, who during the 7th and 8th centuries had to defend against Arab raids and other invasions. With such secrecy, who knows how many other underground cities there may still be in the region to discover. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.